Dear, dear Terry. That's not how this is supposed to start. Let me try that again. Dear Derry. There we go. See, that's much better. Hi. Oh my God, it's been so long since I've done one of these. I'm not exactly sure what the format is, but I'm off to a smashing start because I haven't unlocked my thing, my iPad. I was going to say notepad, but it's not a notepad. It's kind of a notepad. I mean, it has a note. Like I said, I've been gone for a while. I just got back from Texas today. I was down visiting my father for a week and had a great deal of fun. For the most part. There were some elements which I have apparently forgot, and I seem to forget every time I go out there. I seem to continually forget one very big thing that I always find a little bit bothersome, and I never remember it until I get there. And that is that Texas, for the most part, in my experience, is let me correct that. It's not Texas. It's my family. I love them to death, but man, can they be racist. Holy crap. I think it's just the fact that I live in California and we don't have as much of that here. I mean, it's not non-existent, of course, but it's significantly more muted than it is here or in Texas. Oh, and then of course, when I'm there, if I'm with my dad, and we're by ourselves or something, I can comfortably talk about, well, the last guy that I dated, blah 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 blah. But I never quite feel really comfortable talking about that while we're out somewhere, because I don't know, they still have the ban on gay marriage. Somebody asked me, why don't you just, if it's so expensive there, why don't you just move back to Texas? And I'm like, I will consider moving back to Texas when I can marry my boyfriend here. By here, I mean Texas. And they're like, right, but you could get married in like, say, you could go to California and get married and come back. And I said, that is not the point. I will consider moving back to Texas when I can marry my boyfriend here, because this is where the problem is. Once Texas has gotten to a point where it's okay with me having a husband, fine. I've got a lot of data points to cover. First of all, flying. I made an interesting discovery while flying that I don't know why it never occurred to me before. I never heard it before. But when you're ascending, when you're flying out and your ears are adjusting, everybody's voices get very bassy. Everything sounds a lot lower, a lot deeper. A lot of the upper stuff gets muted out. And when you're descending, everything gets very tinny and all the bass is gone. I had never noticed that before. I don't know why. Maybe I've started listening in a lot greater detail because of, doing voice acting and stuff professionally now. I've started paying much deeper attention to the thing. But on the plane, there was a guy, really, really gigantic black guy. Gorgeous. Oh my God. I am so glad he was not sitting next to me, because I would have been... God, he was cute. Really, he was apparently terrified of flying. But there was a Hispanic guy on the opposite side of the aisle who was teaching him little bits and pieces of Spanish. And when your ears are popping and stuff, you can't quite hear the little details in Spanish. So he was constantly mispronouncing everything. And what he was saying, when he would say it back, and the guy would kind of correct him and say, no, it's like this. I'm like, that's exactly what I heard too. And then it occurred to me, it's because our ears were still, adjusting and popping and everything. And so, yeah, trying to learn a language while flying is not an easy thing to do. let's see. We went to NASA. We went to the Johnson Space Center on Wednesday, I believe it was. And my father's lady friend, we were at the food court getting ready to get some food. She's like, I just don't know what I want, you know. And my father's like, well, why don't we go over to the Space Bistro over here and we can see what they've got. She said, well, they have something like tuna or like ham. And I was like, oh, I mean, we're talking about eating at the Space Bistro. So I don't want food that is like tuna or like ham. I want tuna or ham. Because if it's just like tuna, what is it? I just, I was, there was a point where I think it was while we were at the Johnson Space Center, they were talking about food in different countries and stuff. And my father had been to Paris, with his wife before she passed away a couple of years ago. And they said that was one of the most difficult things that, you know, most people in like Paris and whatnot, they don't keep a lot of food in the house. They typically just buy stuff. You know, they stop by the market on the way home and pick things up. And he said that they were, you know, milling about Paris or something. And this Parisian woman she had a loaf of bread she had just bought, and she had to get something out of her purse or something like that. So she's wearing like a strapless, you know, kind of a tube top thing. And she just tucks the bread up under her arm. And it's not like it was in a bag or anything. It was just a loaf of bread that she just stuck it up under her arm. And he said that his wife was like, I was like, oh my God, Parisian armpit bread. I don't know. It's just, then they started joking about making tortillas that way, because his wife's sister makes handmade tortillas every time she cooks. And she's just, oh God, they're so delicious. Anyway, but he was talking about, you know, we just take it and, you know, I was just like, oh, thank you, but no. Another thing that was difficult to get used to is the fact that gasoline is like $1 cheaper per gallon there than it is here. It's like we were driving past this gas station. I'm like, $3 a gallon? Oh my God. You know, it's like, what? Oh, right. I'm in Texas. They get the oil from right there. Okay. That's okay. Last thing, because it's we're just about almost up to 8 minutes, and I'm waiting, waiting for my luggage to arrive because Southwest lost it on the way back. But you know, I mean, this never happened. Well, almost never happens to me. They've never lost my luggage before, and I'm pretty casual about the whole thing. It's like there's nothing in there that I really need, except maybe that $400 check from my father. So that had better be in my suitcase when it gets here. But they were like, you know, well, we'll either deliver it to you or you can come and pick it up and we'll give you a $50 voucher on, you know, your next flight. And I'm like, I don't fly all that often. I just, let's just go with the delivery. And they're like, okay. So I'm waiting for that to show up. So if you see me run off or if there's a sudden edit, that's what it is. So Austin, my dad and I went over to Austin to go and visit Cloud Imperium Games. I'm sure I will talk about this more on Tuesday for the StarCast podcast. But when we got there, my dad was like, you know, maybe you should just go ahead and go on up and I'll just, you know, sit around. I'm like, no, come on. You know, because he's not really big into video games or anything. And I told him, I said, look, you're a pilot. I want you to see this. He's like, I haven't flown a plane in 14 years. I'm like, I don't care. Come on. So, you know, I got up there and I expected to maybe, you know, be like, hey, wingman. Okay. Hey, Rob. Okay. And just kind of, you know, hey, here's the art hanging on the walls and stuff. Oh, there's that table that they sat at while they recorded that one thing. Yeah. No, that's not the way it was. We signed in and we all got our little badges with our names on them. And, we were kind of sitting around talking to this very nice young lady who kind of checked us in. And then Wingman came over and gave us a tour of the office. And I was just like, you're Wingman. Oh, wow. And my dad's like, who is this guy? like, so we did a quick tour of the office and everything, and then we went and sat in the big conference room with the big. I'm explaining it like you know, which some of you actually might. The big conference room with the gigantic television at the far end. We sat in there. We talked for what felt like 20 minutes or so, and my dad actually kind of got into the conversation. He was like, "So what about this and this?" And Wingman's like, "Oh, that's really awesome. That's a great question. And here's the blah blah blah." And it was much more engaged. I mean, perhaps I'm just a little bit cynical, having worked in video game, industry for a while, but I was expecting them to be really busy. I mean, yes, it was the end of day on Friday, but I wasn't expecting them to be as attentive as they were, because I figured, I mean, the dogfighting module is coming out. They are busy people. But they were really, really attentive. And then we got to spend a lot of time with Wingman, and we got to spend a little bit of time with Rob. We got to look at the hanger on the Oculus Rift. I chose to look at it on the high-def Oculus Rift, which isn't quite ready yet. So it's it looked okay. The freelancer looked a little bit squished, but it was fine. It was a lot of fun, and we were joking around with everybody. It was a really, really great time. Everybody there was, they were genuinely pleased, because a lot of times if, tours come through, video game companies, they're like, most people just sit there and they're like, "Oh, hey, how's it going? Welcome to CIG," whatever. And that's kind of it. That's not the way it is at CIG. At least that's the way it was at EA. That's not the way it is at CIG. Every single person we walked past, every person stopped what they were doing. They looked up, they were like, "Hey, how's it going?" And it's like, wow. I mean, they seemed genuinely, I mean, it was great. It was really a lot of fun. I'm going to leave most of this for the podcast, but we had a great time. So we're at about 12 minutes, and my housemate should be back with food soon. I've got 2 more episodes to record tonight. Got to record Motivational Monday and TMI Tuesday, and then I've got to start moving this week, which means I've got to at some point go over to the other house and get the keys to the house so that I can get in and move my stuff in. Right. So I'm going to let you guys go, because that's my suitcase. I'll talk to you guys later. Hey there. Pretty good. You need the paperwork.
No, I don't.
No, you don't. Well, then not. Okay, the hell with the paperwork.
Where it says customer signature.
Oh yeah, right there at the bottom. Right where it should be, I guess. Thank you very much, sir.
No problem. You have a nice evening.
You too. Be careless.